Hi, my name is Jill McNamara, and I'm here with the team of consulting teachers. I work in the south end of the county, and as a consulting teacher, our job is to support teachers who are new to the district or to the profession. We also work as liaisons between the Mentor-Mentee program and the Office of Professional Services. We strive to make your experience here as a first-year teacher in the district as enjoyable as possible.
Hi, I'm Ashley Lee. I am the consulting teacher for the north end of the county.
Hi, I'm Delilah Lewis. I work in the north end of the county as well as central area.
Hello, I'm Ruby Yakelavich, and I work with teachers in the South End.
If you are watching this video, you are either a new teacher to Okaloosa County School District or have agreed to mentor a new teacher. You should have received a mentoring journal and a couple of handouts. If you mentored last year, you will find that many of the expectations have stayed the same. However, you will notice that a number of the requirements have been modified, deleted, or added. Also keep in mind that you have a new mentee and this is a first-time experience for him or her, so please approach this process with a renewed focus. Let's start talking about what mentoring is and isn't. It will be wonderful if the two of you become lifelong work friends, but that's not a necessary requirement. You were thrown together, kind of like a blind date. You don't have to have coffee together or get together outside of school. Mentor, sometimes your mentee may have a difficult life event. You might have some words of wisdom, but that's not your role. This is a professional agreement. Friendship can't be your primary reason for serving as a mentor. Mentor, you are being hired to impart your knowledge and share your expertise. Your work will impact this new teacher's professional life. Mentee, we don't always want to hear what the other person with more experience has to say. Your job is to be receptive and to have an open mindset. Be careful about saying things like, "That doesn't work." Instead, say, "That doesn't work yet." Or, "I'm not good at that." Replace it with, "I'm not good at that yet." You both must be committed to working together. You have the ultimate goal to improve your students' learning. Next, let's look at the materials you should have received through the courier from either me or your administrator. If you have received your materials, you're good to go. If you haven't received your materials yet, it would be best to postpone this video until they arrive. You can contact me in professional services to verify that they are on the way. In your packet, you have either a green, yellow, or pink covered journal, depending on what type of certificate your mentee holds. If you believe you have the wrong materials, please stop the video and give me a call. Mentor, if you have a green or yellow journal, your mentee has a professional certificate and you are going to be paid $450 for the work you commit to. Mentor, if you have someone with a pink journal, he or she has a temporary certificate or a district certificate, and you will be paid $650. Please be aware, in order to be paid the complete amount, you must complete everything outlined in the journal and on time. Sometimes, mentors, you wait too long to get started and forget what you're supposed to do. You must complete the journal and the expectations outlined in it. If you forget, you can always return to this video for a refresher. On the inside back cover of the front of your journal is a quarter-by-quarter checklist. It even includes the amount paid to the mentor for completing each requirement. The yellow and green journals have the same requirements. However, if you have a pink journal, remember you are paid $650 and you have an additional requirement in quarter 3 and quarter 4. Also notice that everyone has the requirement to secure an administrator's signature and date at the end of each quarter. You will notice that on the first white page of your journal, these expectations are reiterated. The following 2 pages outline the first quarter mentoring requirements. These are all of those really important jobs that happen outside of the classroom. You will see things like making substitute plans, parent-teacher conferencing techniques, writing an ippy-dippy. You might choose to meet each week and whittle away at these a little at a time, or you may decide to take a TDE day, a half or a whole, and tackle a large chunk of these requirements. Whatever works best for the two of you. Just remember that you may and probably will want to revisit some of these throughout the year. So what exactly is the formative process model? As the graphic shows, it's a cyclical process that allows for ongoing support and improvement to a mentee's self-selected area of need. So let's take a closer look at it sequentially. We're going to identify who has the responsibility to carry out each of the steps. The first step, the mentee will identify an area of need. The second step, the mentor will collect data that's aligned to that mentee's area of need. The third step, the mentor will provide feedback and maybe offer suggestions or strategies to help the mentee improve. The fourth step, the mentee will practice the strategies in his or her classroom. The fifth step, together they will review what happened according to those strategies in that practice and make plans to continue. The area of need, the first step, is ultimately the mentee's decision. The area the mentee chooses to work through should be related to classroom instruction. Although everyone needs help with gradebook, ippy-dippy, and they are very important, they do not impact classroom instruction and are not appropriate for the formative cycle. Remember, all of those important skills that happen outside of your classroom are part of your first quarter requirements. It's fine to revisit them anytime throughout the year, but if it doesn't happen in the classroom, you cannot use it as one of your 3 required formative cycles. After the mentee identifies an area of need, together the two of you should state how the outcome will impact student learning. For example, if the mentee states they are having a problem with student participation in classroom discussion, that's what's written as the stated need. The desired outcome on student learning might be something like, the more students verbalize and interact with each other, the more likely they are to make connections to the content being taught. Finally, before leaving this initial meeting, together set a time for the mentor to observe the mentee in action. That should be a 10 to 20 minute observation time period. In step 2, the mentor has made arrangements to observe during a time that the area of need will be evident. The mentor may choose to use part of his or allotted TDE days, get someone to cover his or her class, or go during his or her planning. Again, whatever works best for you. During this 10 to 15 minute observation, the mentor will record data based on what is happening in the classroom. Stick to the facts and avoid writing down what you think will fix the problem or what the mentee should be doing. And this is really important. When you go in for those few minutes, look at the big picture. Try to capture everything that you possibly can. Later on, you both might discover that what was first identified as the problem is not the problem at all. The more observational data you collect, the richer the discussion will be during the debrief. As soon as possible, but no more than a couple of days, the two of you will come together again for step 3. During this step, start by letting the mentee read through your step 2 data. Ask him or her leading questions to elicit whether he or she understood what was actually happening during those few minutes that you observed. You'll be surprised at how often you don't know what was going on in your own classroom. Together, determine if the identified problem was in fact the area of need or was something else happening that was causing the real problem. Using the evidence as a guide, brainstorm solutions to fix the problem identified, and record 1 or 2 strategies for the mentee to try. Mentor, prior to this meeting, you may need to do some research in order to be offering appropriate strategies. You can ask the consulting teachers, the instructional coaches, fellow teachers, or just think back to your own past experiences. Just be ready to offer some solid instructional practice strategies. Because let's face it, if your mentee knew what to do, they would have already been doing it. One word of caution here, mentors. Be careful not to overwhelm your mentee when reviewing your collection of observed data. Remember, they're brand new to this teaching business, and you will undoubtedly see dozens of things that they could use some work on. However, for each cycle, focus on what they asked you to focus on. Highlight the evidence that relates to that area of need. Another day, you can revisit the other evidence and work on those problems. Once the two of you settle on a specific strategy, the mentee will implement it. He or she will record what happens during the next step. Set another meeting date for the two of you, maybe 2 to 3 weeks out. Remember, change takes time and practice. As you leave today, the mentee should take the journal to make a recording of what happens during the implementation stage. Between steps 3 and 4, the mentee will be implementing the strategies you both agreed on. Mentee, it's a great idea to journal your experiences every day or so, and that will allow you to see the transition in your practice. Or in the event the improvement doesn't happen as expected, you and your mentor will have evidence to review. All of us tend to give up too easily when we are trying to make a change. So during the 2 to 3 week period, stick with the strategy you selected. At the end of the 2 to 3 weeks, you will come back together and the mentee will have completed step 4 and you'll be ready to debrief. In step 5, the two of you will discuss the results of the strategy that was implemented. In this space, jot down some notes from the discussion. Ultimately, you're going to have to decide whether you continue to work on that one problem identified or move on to something else. Once you've made that decision, you will check the boxes at the bottom of the page. You'll either identify the box that says you're going to continue on that problem or you're going to move on to a new one. You'll also notice that there's a place to date and sign at the conclusion of this first cycle. Regardless of whether you continue working on one area of need or start something new, you have now mastered the formative process model and you're ready for a new cycle next quarter. This next section is a video clip with role-playing the mentor-mentee conversation. It is meant to put into action the steps of the formative cycle.
Hi, I'm Sharon Duran, and this is Jill McNamara, and today Jill and I are going to role play what the formative process model looks like. And this is something that you, along with your mentee, or if you're the mentor, whatever, that you will go through 3 times during the school year. So we're going to role play the very first conversation that will take place for us. Hi, Jill. How are you today?
Nice to see you, Sharon. I'm fine, thank you.
Well, it's good to see you. And it's really hard to believe that we're already in our second 9 weeks.
I know, it's going so fast.
Yeah. And in our first 9 weeks, you and I worked off and on during the 9-week time period to make sure you understood all the little housekeeping issues that are addressed in your journal.
Yes.
And so that having been completed, we are ready to move on to our first formative process model.
Wonderful.
So, and our goal with this is to identify an area of need that you have in your classroom.
Okay.
And to come up with strategies to help you solve those issues or concerns that you have so that you can concentrate on your instruction.
Wonderful.
So what I'd like to ask you to do is to kind of share with me anything that you think would be helpful for you and I to work on together.
Well, I'm spending a lot of time lesson planning. It seems
Okay.
very cumbersome. I'd like to become more efficient. I'd also like to become more proficient with iReady.
Okay.
I'm not comfortable with the program.
Okay, and I am happy to help you with both of those two concerns. Lesson planning, though, doesn't really fall into the formative process model.
Okay.
But that is something that you and I will definitely come back and visit at another time so that I can help you with it. I know there are so many very specific components to our lesson plans, and I know you want to make sure you're covering it all effectively.
Absolutely.
So I will make a note of it here
Thank you.
and make sure we come back and work on that. And as far as iReady goes, I am not an iReady guru, but I can certainly connect you with other people here at your school that can help you with that.
Great.
And so I'll make sure that takes place for you as well.
Okay.
But as we work on the formative process model, we really want to focus on things that happen inside your classroom, activities, actions, behaviors that affect the day-to-day workings of what's happening in your room.
Okay.
So if you think just a little bit about what something like that might be.
Well, I find that when we're in stations and we're moving from one activity to another, I have to say the same things over and over again. And I know that students know what to do because we went over everything in the beginning of the year and I have the procedures posted on the board, but I still end up repeating myself again and again, and it's very tiresome.
Right. So what I'm hearing here is that perhaps there's your transition time or that period
Yes.
of time that's taking place when kids are moving from one activity to the next are not as efficient as you'd like for them to be.
That's right.
And why is that a problem? How does that affect what's happening in your classroom on a daily basis?
Well, I get worn out having to say the same thing over and over again. And when it takes them so long to get to the station, we don't have as much time at the station.
Right. So lack or losing instructional time
Yes.
is a huge problem. So I think we can note here in step 1 in our journal that the area of need that we want to work on for this cycle is the timing and transitions.
Yes.
And that the desired outcome, what you want to see happen, would be that you would gain back some instructional time.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. So our next step is for me to come into your classroom and observe
Okay.
what's happening during transitions, during your station time, and how kids are moving from activity to activity. And then we'll discuss that
Okay.
and come up with some strategies on how we can make adjustments to your teaching schedule.
Wonderful.
Okay, so how about, let's see, I'm looking at my calendar. How about if I come in tomorrow morning at like 9:20?
Okay.
I think you have a class then, and it's my planning period, but I'm happy to give up, 15, 20 minutes of my planning to help you out with this.
Great. 9:20 is perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
and I can expect to see the kids in stations and making those transitions
Yes.
during that time frame.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well, I look forward to seeing you.
Me too. Thank you.
Jill, thanks so much for letting me come into your classroom yesterday. I
very
so appreciated having that opportunity to come in and actually visualize what you think to be a concern in your room. So what I'd like to do right now is to go over the evidence that I collected. And while I was in your room, I was very sure to be objective about what I saw. I'm not putting in any of my emotion. It's the clean evidence, what I saw you do, what I saw the students do.
Okay.
Okay. So I came in at about 9:21, and at 9:23, I noted that all the students were engaged in their ELA stations. At 9:25, the timer went off to designate that they were ready to move to the next activity. So at that time, students started cleaning up. A couple of students were very unsure as to where to put their papers that they had been working on. Students were talking and kind of moving around slowly. There was one young man, Adam, and I know his name just because I know him from the playground. Adam was kicking a ball around the room.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even see that.
And then there were three students talking about who was going to go on Moby Max next. At 9:29,
Oh my goodness.
you were
so
at.
4 minutes?
It took 4 minutes.
Oh,
yes.
did not seem that long because
Yeah.
I was so busy.
Right. At 9:29, you were finally able to sit down at the teacher table and start working with kids. But in the meantime, there were still some kids having a little difficulty getting settled down into the next activity. So I noted here that at one time you had to say focus, focus, and students replied back, everybody focus, but they didn't really focus.
Okay.
They were still a little off.
Right.
So it took a little while for people to get settled. At 9:40, so now we've been working for about 10 minutes, kids were stationed out across the room and you had good eye contact. You were able to see what students were doing, and so that's very good. At 9:40, one of the kids at your table had to get up and go get a pencil, and then he stopped and talked to a classmate, and so that, kind of got a little off task there. Occasionally, during station time, students were raising their hands and asking you questions. So that got you off task as well as perhaps getting some other students off task as well. Again, I note that you scanned the room and you eyeballed a student when he was off task, and he recognized that and tried to get back on. But in general, that's kind of what I saw during that time frame. So what's your takeaway from this?
Well, I appreciate this because when I'm sitting at the table, it feels really productive because the students who are with me, I'm able to connect with.
Right.
However, I had no idea that we were taking so long during transitions, because we transition about 3 or 4 times during the morning. That's anywhere from 12 to 20 minutes of
Right.
wasted time.
Yeah. And time that could be much better spent on instruction.
Yes, absolutely.
So I feel like we need to kind of come up with some strategies to help you win that time back.
Absolutely.
And if I might suggest using music at your transition times.
Okay.
I've seen other other teachers in your building use it, and at other schools as
Great
well.
idea.
There's lots of websites out there where you can pick music that's appropriate for your room.
Okay.
So you might want to investigate that.
Yes.
I think the key thing to remember, though, as you're getting ready to implement this new strategy to help the kids transition, is that you've got to come up with a set of rules and guidelines, expectations that you have of the students. They need to learn them, know them, and practice them before you even start using them in the actual transition.
Okay.
So there might be a time during the day where once you've got it in your head, you've formulated your rules, you know what to tell the kids, where you guys could practice it.
Okay.
So can you come up with any time in your day where you think you might be able to do that?
Probably the very end of the day.
Okay.
When we're at the point where we're almost packing up to meet the buses, that might be a
Right.
good time to
Right.
go over
I
those.
think so. And I think you could reinforce that in the morning.
Okay.
Because perhaps, it'll just be a good refresher. And so
Yes.
you might have to practice moving from station A to station B to station C 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
Before you're ready to actually implement it.
Okay.
And once you implement it, you need to be very consistent with carrying it through.
Okay.
If you allow kids to start chatting, they're going to continue to chat. So they need to understand that we have some rules to follow.
Okay.
I think we talked about 1 minute being a good amount of time to use, which seems a little quick, but I think you'll see that once they're on task, it works.
Okay.
That having been said, they also need to know this is not a time to run from station to station.
Right.
We're using our inside feet, etc.
Okay.
So making sure that they're very clear about what's expected
Okay.
and following through with that. Practice, practice, practice. So what I'd like to see you do is commit to doing this every day for the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
And then I will come back and we'll talk about how you think it's gone.
Okay.
Okay?
So I will put the date down. I will start tomorrow.
Perfect.
And I will commit to
Perfect.
practicing it for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, good.
And then we'll reconvene.
Okay, and I think it's a really good idea in that 2-week time period as you're practicing this and implementing it, that make some notes on what worked and what didn't work, and that way you can kind of adjust on a regular basis.
Okay, will
Okay.
do.
So I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Me too.
Good. So, you've been practicing transitions for the last couple weeks. How's it gone, Jill?
I have. Well, I'm very grateful. I at first thought that 1 minute would be too quick, but it's not. The room's not
Okay.
that big. They have plenty of time to get where they're going. And then I was wary of spending time practicing because that is taking away from instructional time. But boy, was that time well spent, because that
Yes.
practicing has enabled them to get this procedure down much better. Now,
Right.
it's not perfect. I think I still have a little bit of work to do with the kids who talk while they're transitioning while the music's playing. So I still have some tweaking to do, but it's quite an improvement. Thank you.
That's good. I'm
Yes.
glad. And you know, I don't remember if I suggested that perhaps you visit another classroom that's using music in the transitions. So if you haven't been able to do that yet, perhaps you would still like to make the time to do that.
Yes, I will.
You could
Thank
find
you.
time, and perhaps you're planning to run to another classroom to just check for a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So we're at a place now where we're really ready to move on to either close this part of our formative cycle out,
Okay.
if you feel comfortable with it, or we can move on to another aspect of your classroom that you'd like to work on. So how do you feel about this? Would you like to work a little bit more on the timing of the transitions, or are you ready to move on to another concern?
I think I'd like option number 2, move on to another concern. Because while
Okay.
my transitions are not perfect yet, they are much improved, and I do feel like I have the ability to tweak them.
Right.
Whereas you pointed out to me after your observation that Adam was kicking a ball around, and I'd really like to get some strategies to keep him more engaged.
Right, right. Well, we can certainly work on that. The formative process model does provide opportunity for us to work on the behaviors of one child in a
Right.
classroom.
Okay.
And because you'll see that once we have his behaviors changed, that will also help you and the entire classroom.
Yes.
So, and improve your instructional time as well. So that's what we'll do. I will mark this that we have completed cycle 1, and you're going to move on to the next cycle.
Okay.
And so we'll set up a time here in the next week or so to talk about your next area of need, and we'll go through the whole process again.
Okay. And I do still need help with lesson planning.
Oh, good. I'm glad you reminded me. And I'm happy to do that. Let's pull out our calendars
Okay.
and figure out a date when I can come back in. I just want to remind you that's not part of the formative cycle, but as your mentor, I am here to help you with all those issues that come up as we're getting comfortable in the school year. So I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, I will talk to you later then, Jill.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Thank you again for participating in the training. We are very committed to this process. You will see us in your schools asking how it's going. Please be forthcoming with us. We will be discreet if either of you feel the mentor-mentee relationship isn't working. We want a win-win situation for everyone. To wrap up, let's go over your next steps. In your packet, you had a closing activity. Together, both of you should work through that worksheet. Also, both of you should sign the mentor-mentee agreement. Those 2 papers should be sent back to professional services. Then you're ready to get started. Good luck, and thank you again.